Welcome back to Tul World. This is your host, Mr. Ju, and I'm here with Master Ju. What are we talking about today?
Well, I thought we would maybe touch a little bit about step sparring.
Okay, and what about step sparring in particular?
I think it's mostly about details. There are certain things that we do in step sparring that I think can also relate in patterns, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a little attention to details. Mm-hmm. Specifically in what is step sparring? What's your view on that?
I always think that step sparring should be basically like patterns with a partner. So it's kind of taking an application and putting it up against an opponent.
Right, that's kind of the way I look at it too, because patterns are nice to work on technique, but how does it actually work with an individual? Of course, you can do patterns and get people to, run the attacks, and you can do the defense, and you can attack them and so forth. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of cool. You see that in demonstrations. Mm-hmm. But from a training point of view, we don't do that. Mm-hmm. So step sparring is a great way to utilize techniques that are from patterns and how they work with an individual. The way we do step sparring is kind of it's very laid out, very much like patterns. Now, there's just a general rule for like 3-step sparring, 2-step sparring, 1-step sparring, and so forth. Mm-hmm. But if you start creating like certain sets, right, certain attacks, so that people don't have to think on the fly, that can help a lot of new students. Mm-hmm. So that they're just having to learn how to do that, and then try to figure out how does it work with an individual. Right. So why don't you go ahead and give us a little breakdown? Let's just talk about the beginning 3-step sparring and then how we might relate that to patterns.
Mm-hmm. Okay, beginning 3-step sparring, we always measure with the right leg, pull back with the right leg, and then defense would move their left leg. That way, everyone stays lined up when they start an attention stance.
Right. So we start in an attention stance, right? Mm-hmm. And so when we do all the measurements and we do all of the ready positions, mm-hmm. which foot moves right and left? I mean, is that important?
Yeah, it is important because you need to make sure that both your opponents line up. Because if you both stepped with the right leg, then one's going to be off on one side, one's going to be on the other side, and vice versa. So it is important that you make sure that everyone steps in the correct direction.
Right. And so which one starts right and which one starts left?
The attacker is going to be right, defender is going to be left.
Right. And General Chase mentioned that as well. Mm-hmm. And the reason being is that he said the right hand was for attack and the left hand was for defense. Mm-hmm. And so we move our right foot for attacking. Yeah. We move our left foot for defending. Mm-hmm. So when we talk about patterns, in patterns, when you look at just like in the book, it tells you what stance it is, right? Mm-hmm. And does it ever tell you which foot do you move from attention stance to the ready position?
No, I don't think so. I think sometimes you see old videos of people training and they just go from like a listening position into a ready position.
That's right. However, we might see it in competition, like a world competition. But why is that? Because normally is because they bow into the judges, their attention stance, and they say junbi, and so then they go into the ready position. Mm-hmm. So that's probably the one time that you actually do see you go from the attention stance to the parallel raise stance.
Yeah.
So other than that, is it a requirement? And what you're saying is probably not.
Depends on how disciplined your students are.
Okay. But at our school, we generally start from the attention stance, don't we? And there's reasons why I do it that way. And that is, if we're going to go to competition, we want to make sure that they do, kind of it's scripted out, right? In other words, they do, you perform like you train. Mm-hmm. So if you're always like let's say a sloppy stance and they say junbi, you can do that. Go to, let's say, closed raise stance A. You can do that.
Mm-hmm.
Would you do that at a world championship though?
No.
Probably not. So if we start them off at color belts, white belts, red belts,
Mm-hmm.
get them training so that when they do happen to compete in that level, that they automatically do that. They don't think about it.
Yeah.
So in our school, we generally go from the attention stance, and then we go into the ready position.
Mm-hmm.
So which foot should move left and right if that's the case? But there's no real rule, is there?
No.
Like what we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
So how should we do it?
I'd probably just say move the left leg all the time.
Move the left foot to the ready position, assuming it's a parallel ready stance or something?
Yeah.
Okay. So in four directional punch and block, I always teach it, and I don't know about you, but if it's a four directional block, I say move the left foot. If it's four directional punch, I say move the right foot. And that's kind of in line with that step sparring.
Yeah.
So
I say
attacker would move right, defender would move left.
no, I do it the same way.
Oh, you do it the same way. Okay.
Yeah.
So piggybacking off of last week, what two patterns were started off with an attacking movement?
Oji and Tongyo.
Old and Tongyo. So would we move the right foot into the ready position in those two patterns? How would you do it?
Probably still move the left foot.
You still move with the left foot.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm going to move the right foot.
Okay.
But like I said, the pattern only starts from the ready position. There's no right or wrong.
Well, my question is that most of the times you want to start off like at the intersection of a mat, so you're right in the middle. But in order to make sure that that point is in the middle, you have to stand at your attention stance off to the side, so that when you move into the parallel stance, that it lines up. Is there anything wrong with moving both feet to make sure that you're in the middle?
That's a good question. I think that's a good question. I think that the directions of the line is relative to where you stand. In other words, unless you actually mark the floor, right, then that's where it is, right? Then if you had marked the floor, then I think that moving left and right to adjust it into that where it marks is correct. But if you have no lines, then it becomes an imaginary. So whether I move left or move right, that the line starts wherever you start from the ready position. That's the way I look at it. So I don't think it makes much of a difference.
Okay. Any last comments on that?
No, but I'd like to hear what other people think though.
Okay, so
But we never get that, do we?
no, leave it in the comments on what you think about moving your left and right foot. Thanks for jumping in to another Tul World podcast. Don't forget to be safe,
Keep training.
and we'll see you guys next week.
Taekwondo.